your Facebook page for mayor says that you're a founding member of the Friends of Opal Creek.
Yep.
And then there's some stuff out on the internet about your role back then, which I wasn't paying attention. Remember, we were talking, I was in a cradle, but that you worked as a lobbyist for the mining company in that.
Do you know the history of Opal Creek?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, but that's why I don't have an answer for this discrepancy. Or
well, it's not a discrepancy.
Okay.
I think both are accurate. I thought the characterization of my role is always interesting. Look,
did you see something about that?
I saw
something
some
online.
Carol. I know Carol ran some stuff about it. It's like Carol says, "Chuck, please don't go to England again because we need to have you here to protect us all." I'm sure she's sorry she said that.
I didn't catch that.
Oh, it's on my Facebook page.
Okay.
She had a lot of really positive things to say. Remember, she's a huge supporter of mine. I am a founding member of Friends of Opal Creek with Georgia Tia, Mike Donnelly, Andy Kerr, a large group of very active environmentalists. We formed Friends of Opal Creek. I represented Shiny Rock Mining Company, which was the front group of the Georgia Tia cadre of environmental radicals up there. George and Tom used Shiny Rock and its claims to protect that area, and particularly the mining camp up there. And so I represented them. And I did a great deal of work, and we worked with LB Day. Again, LB was a great American, by the way. LB to create scenic waterways up there to help, again, protect that area as we worked toward the wilderness area. I also was on the board for many years of Friends of Opal Creek, and in fact was on the board when the Opal Creek Wilderness Area was created. I was treasurer at that time, signed a number of the documents that actually resulted in the transfers of ownership and responsibility that created the Opal Creek Wilderness. So I read that thing, and that was by someone who clearly doesn't know anything about the history of that area. And I think if you were to talk to Mike Kopetsky, she talked about Hatfield, and she forgot Mike and the role he played. Mike will tell you I'm probably one of the more integral people in the protection of that area because I kept guys like him interested. At the same time, there were other companies taking a look, and Kinross came in and looking over in another part of the watershed. George, Andy, Michael contacted me and said, look, these guys are looking for somebody who will work with them in their EIS on public involvement, and we'd like to have you help them do a public involvement, which meant bring in the Sierra Club, bring in all of these environmental groups to look at what they were doing. And so I said, okay, yeah, I'd be glad to work with them. I'd already worked with Shiny Rock. I was kind of used to what the issue package looked like. And so I worked with them on their EIS and their public involvement section on their EIS. Their EIS came out with a record of decision that said they ought to be able to go ahead. State law said you can't do anything in that watershed. It wasn't the mining operation, it was in fact they needed a discharge permit off of a parking lot up there, which would have washed water into a Gold, I can't remember which creek, I think it was Gold or one of the creeks up there. And you could not, that required a discharge permit. You couldn't have discharge permits up there. So despite a successful EIS, they could not go ahead with their mining operation up there. That's it.
So was it a conflict? It just seems when it's just said in a short thing without
any understanding of what the job was.
It says, how can you be, on the board and one of the primary defenders of, on the Friends board, and then work for a mining company whose goal is to
You got to know the history.
You got to understand.
Yeah, right.
The Shiny Rock Mining Company people were the biggest environmentalists in the area.
Right, but what was the mining company?
Kinross was another.
Doesn't have a reputation of being positive.
They were huge supporters of the Opal Creek
mine or something like that.
Well, they wanted to do an underground copper mine, but
I just want to make sure I understand and I can even explain it to someone, because I have talked to several of the people involved in this, and many of them say that you had a positive role back then.
I did.
So how can you work for the mining company and you know, can you explain that?
Yeah.
Why is it a disconnect in my mind that you work
because
for a
you
mining
have a
company
prejudice that you can't work
against
through.
mining companies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't understand how the mining law worked, the mining law is a really interesting, and this is part of understanding it. And the mining law of 1872 created essentially an absolute right for mining companies to certain areas. We use the mining law of 1872 to protect Opal Creek. Well, that's a mining company. That's a mining company protecting a mining camp, protecting an area that actually has some tremendous environmental issues built into it. We knew that because the area had been mined, and you were getting water coming out of some of those old shafts passing through tailings and stuff like that. I mean, there were issues up there, there's no question about it, but what we were trying to do was save the area from logging, okay? And then we would come back and work on the cleanup, because there was a huge cleanup issue up there. Yeah. And in the process, I became pretty expert on how all this stuff worked together. Kinross and George, remember George is a guy, I don't know if you know George.
Yeah.
Do you?
Not well.
Okay.
Yes. George son or nephew?
Nephew.
Tom is the son.
Son, yeah. And George is a graduate of Colorado mining schools. He's actually a miner, kind of into mining, but he also was an unbelievably gifted environmentalist and environmental
How's he doing,
activist.
by the way? Do you know?
Right?
How's he doing?
I guess he's okay.
He had an accident.
I haven't seen
right?
him. Yeah, he had
plane
crashed a
accident.
plane. I haven't talked to him lately.
Okay.
But when George, Andy, and Andy in particular, who is a national environmental figure,
absolutely,
contacted me and said, look, we want to have somebody working with Kinross. We think they may have an approach that is environmentally appropriate, that would allow mining to occur up here, but we want someone working with them on the EIS and the public involvement that keeps it open, a whole bunch of that kind of discussion went on, and I said, okay, I'll work with them. I stayed on, they supported the Opal Creek Wilderness. I thought, continued to try to put together a mining operation that was environmentally sensitive and appropriate up in that area. The question was, could you do it? I think the ultimate answer is mining died up there probably 50 to 100 years ago as an appropriate use in an area that is that wet. But they wanted to take a run at it. They got a record of decision out of the Forest Service that said they could go ahead, but the law is really clear. You can't do anything up there that results in runoff into those creeks. They also had some issues with the plumbers local. I mean, this can get real complicated, but some issues with the plumbers local. They would not agree to go to a union shop, and the plumbers local had some issues with them. And there became I think, probably an unreasonable description of them as a strip mine or as a mining operation that was environmentally dangerous down here. That just wasn't true. But perception was that, and ultimately they went away. So what I've done several times over the years is I've been contacted to contact them. I have no contact with them, but
they're Canadian?
They may be now. They were out of Salt Lake City at the time, to try to get those claims back into the system. And I did it particularly while I served on an advisory committee to the Forest Service for that area, aimed at it as a roadless, extending its roadless area thing. I've been so involved in up there. There isn't much that's happened up there I haven't been involved in for over the past 40 some years. I mean, I killed a dam. It's against the law to put another dam in the North Santiam River that I passed. There's just a lot of stuff I've been involved in up there, but it's all been environmental activism. This isn't for the faint of heart. This isn't for people who like to hug a tree. This is for people who like to save a tree. But yeah, I understand your confusion about it. I have no confusion. George has no confusion. The folks who are really, truly involved in saving that area understand how this whole thing worked. And we all work together in all different kinds of capacities. This was really, really hardcore working to save that area, and what's so cool is we did. We made it.
Remember when I sold my old Volkswagen bus, the Save Opal Creek
bumper sticker? That's us.
That'd be great.
That was us. Save Opal Creek. Opal Creek, the uncut gem. That was George, Andy, and me sitting up at my place in Gates talking about what's our motto. You know, that kind of stuff.
You know,
and we disagree as to who said it first.
A colleague of mine,
I think I did.
Of course.
Andy thinks he did. So.
Where's Andy? Medford?
Back east.
Back east.
Yeah, he's doing a new one. He's got they're trying to declare essentially the Douglas Fir National Monument, which would essentially be the entire stretch of the Cascades.
Oh,
I mean, Andy never stops.
Oh, he never stops.
Oh, he's a trip.
Yeah, he really is.
So that lady, I felt bad, and I almost responded, and I thought, you know what, I don't care. I don't care what she or anyone else thinks. I know, as George told me, I guaranteed myself a place in heaven for all the work I did up there. That there is my history up there is really, really, really positive. I feel real good about it. We were really,
well, we got into that whole
we
thing.
lucked out with LB. He really worked with George and I on putting that together and understood what we were doing were interim steps. It was like everything we could do for about 10 years to block logging up there.
Yeah,
because if we didn't do it, if they got through anything and started logging, they'd never stop. We'd have lost the whole thing. That was the problem.
Yeah, because you couldn't make the case for the pristineness.
No, because it'd been mined.
Were you involved in the 3-basin rule?
That's what stopped it, was the 3-basin rule.
Okay, and that's a state law?
State law,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and it had not been, they'd hired Stoll Reeves, was the law firm, the mining company had hired. Really expert. I mean, the people involved, Gail Ackerman was the lawyer specifically involved. Blumenauer's wife was the other lawyer involved, and they missed that rule. And so the record of decision comes out saying, yeah, go ahead, mine. Well, the 3-basin rule is just clearly sitting there saying you can't do anything up here in this basin. And that was the end of the discussion. It was over. It was over at that point. There was no.
And the 3-basin rule still applies
Oh,
today?
God, yeah.
Oh, and it's the North Santiam, the middle?
It's it's up in that, I believe it's up in that little, well, yeah, it'd be in all those basins, I guess. It's they're basin rules. And it's the North Santiam, or maybe the Santiam.
Santiam.
It may be the broader basin, it may be in the McKenzie, and it may be in, I'm not sure which
Most
basin.
people don't know about it.
Really, well, obviously, these lawyers sure couldn't find it.
Yeah.
It was really I mean, it's pretty shocking that they'd spent millions of dollars doing this EIS. I mean, there's nothing cheap about those. But we've also been able to use the EIS over the years to help protect that area too, because it gave a baseline of information on that area. And I think for Salem, the really good news is we've got a baseline on our water quality up there, and I think a bulletproof system. There's nobody going in up there. Probably the biggest threats we have are Mill City and Gates sitting along our water with not Gates so much as Mill City with potential
What they could do.
potential problems.
Problems into